I am who I am because of everyone. I mean, this is Patrick McGowan's worst nightmare.
Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome.
They had one meeting, a global meeting for all the Council on Foreign Relations, Royal Institute for International Affairs. And remember, all Commonwealth countries has its own Institute for International Affairs. We have the Canadian Institute for International Affairs. It's all the same organization. We have them in India, we have them in Australia, New Zealand, and so on. And they had a global meeting held in London, printed in the newspapers at the time, to decide which country, the United States or England, would promote the new culture for the global society through movies, big magazines, and music, and the arts, and so on. And I think they held it for 2 to 3 weeks, and then they published their findings and said that they decided that Hollywood and the music industry based in Los Angeles and in New York would be given the right to give the global culture, create the global culture through arts and entertainment to the whole world.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, Mr. Watt, because as you obviously know, Hollywood and America is exporting their culture at an exponential rate. It's dominating. I mean, they have things like the McDonald's theory of diplomacy, where two countries with a McDonald's won't go to war, and that's supposed to be the reason for every country to have a McDonald's. So on an academic level and on a sort of plebeian level, it's being sold as the thing to do for world peace, and yet it never seems to result in that. How controlled is it in Hollywood? I mean, are all the actors we see on TV, all the models being promoted in our newspapers, are they in some way affiliated with these groups that are planning our socialization?
Some of them understand it. Susan Sarandon, for instance, she came out at the same time, the same awards ceremony that others came out and spoke out against the war with Iraq, and she did use the proper term that I haven't heard outside the old Soviet Union. She said, we being part of the culture creation industry, because we are the culture creators, she said. That's how she started her little talk off. So some of them understand what their purpose is. It's not to entertain us, it's to do predictive programming. Now, the producers and the writers certainly do know what they're there for. There's no problem there. They understand perfectly their role is to create a culture by familiarizing us along fictitious lines with ideas which are yet to come, and that's called predictive programming. It was started off in Tavistock Institute in London, England, and they found that they could actually put ideas in plays and in movies on science fiction ideas, and when the real thing came along in your life, because you were vaguely familiar with the idea, you accepted it much more easily. You didn't question it. And so that's called predictive programming. And you'll find almost every movie that you watch, it'll catch you up with the usual hero and the heroine thing, the bad guys, the good guys, but there's always a twist in there to do with science or a new type of technology which we must all comply with, or a future society with totalitarian ID cards everywhere, or even implanted chips. This is called predictive programming. So the public eventually go along with this step by step and think it's inevitable, that it's somehow normal.
The more aware we are of our vulnerabilities to conform on any level, the better we're able to defend against it.
You are free to do as we tell you. You are free to do as we tell you.
I ask you not to question anything you read or see in the mainstream media.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
You know, the Bible is a complete Masonic work compiled of Jewish, Egyptian, and Eastern mysticism. The words of Jesus come from the ancient oracle scrolls of Egypt. All the characters are archetypes of the human psyche and nothing really more than that. And all the creation stories of the world speak to this group who hides the sacred teachings from the world.
Look who's talking, the last believer. I'm the one who was happy with neither. The last to come and the first to leave it. I tossed my faith in the river. My mistake, my philosophy busted. I watched my future become encrusted. I had a dream but refused to trust it. Now I finally sussed it.
Instead, Freud argued, civilization had actually been constructed to control the dangerous animal forces inside human beings. What was implicit in Freud's argument was that the ideal of individual freedom, which was at the heart of democracy, was impossible. Human beings could never be allowed to truly express themselves because it was too dangerous. They must always be controlled and would thus always be discontent.
It's scary how effective public relations really is. It's how do you make a person feel and think a certain way. Now, you have to ask yourself how much of what you feel and think is a result of what somebody else wants you to feel and think.
Truth. It's used a lot, bandied around a lot. Do we really understand that truth is it's really the same word for reality? And if we don't see reality as it is, in other words, if we have an idea of reality, then where's the truth?